Steve here with Table Rock Tea Company. Before we get started, please, as always, like and subscribe. Now, we're not going to get too deep into this today, but this video will probably, I'm going to guess, offend some of you. I'm going to guess it will make a few of you mad, and I'm also going to guess that it'll finally relieve a few of you as well. You can kind of call this a change my mind video. And here's the deal. It has to do with essential oils and hydrosols. Now, part of this video will be a bit of a book review. I have recently picked up this book right here. It's called From Harvest to Hydrosols. It's its second edition by Ann Harman. I believe she's over in Australia. And I have corresponded with her multiple times via email. This book, its first edition, sold out. And there was a time when to find copies was in the hundreds of dollars. It was just very scarce, and finally she came out with this second edition. Everything you want to know about making hydrosols. Now, that's unusual because most of the time you'll see books like this, and they will talk about essential oils. This is not that. This is hydrosols. So I will let the book explain it. I will say, in short, it's a good book, okay? If you are looking for hydrosol material, how to make them, what kind of equipment to use, that kind of thing. Now, here's where sort of the debate part of this video comes in. I really am having a hard time seeing any value, medical value whatsoever, to essential oils. You heard it. I'm just going to say it like it is, okay? My background, again, I've been 30 plus years in medicine. I'm a surgical nurse by trade. I know how the human body works very well. I have studied and studied and studied. And yes, I study herbal medicine as well as regular Western medicine, so to speak. I've been in clinical practice for over 30 years. And here's the problem I have, and just to not to make it so that I'm just sort of throwing out credentials or that kind of thing. But remember, I'm the CEO of Table Rock Tea Company. We've been in operation for 10 years. We co-pack for 50 other tea and herb companies across the country. Probably in our history, we've co-packed for 150 or so. We see all kinds of herbal material come through. We see all kinds of products come through. We see all kinds of claims on things come through. We are right below Asheville, North Carolina, which is essentially the mecca of herbal medicine. My background started in plant biology at Virginia Tech prior to going into nursing, and I've always had an interest in herbal medicine. I've studied it for decades. But here's the problem. When things come on the market and people can't explain the mechanism, I have a huge problem with that. And essential oils are one of those things. When you start asking people about, hey, what's it good for? And they're like, well, it's good for just, everything. Or like, I throw it in the same category as CBD. I know that's going to tick some of you guys off as well. But when I start hearing things like, well, it just really helped me. Helped you how? That's what I want to know. Helped you how? And you can't just say, well, it just made me feel better, or it's, in the herbal medicine space, the word tonic always gets my goat. It's a blood tonic. Basically means you don't know what you're talking about. It means you don't know how it works. You don't know the mechanisms behind it. And that's hugely important. Now, I know that we tend to polarize as far as Western medicine goes and herbal medicine goes, but there really has to be a balance. And I'm hoping that I bring that balance to the table here with that, because there's a lot of garbage that is posed in natural medicine. There's a lot of garbage that's posed in Western medicine too, believe me. We peddle a lot of poison, as we say. But in herbal medicine, there tends to be just peddling a lot of poetry. There's not really anything behind it. And some of the stuff can be dangerous. That's the part I think people don't quite understand. If you don't believe that herbal medicine is effective, go start chewing on some foxglove and see how fast you'll end up in the ER, because it's going to mess up your heart. But here's the kicker. We know what it does to the heart. That's the important part. So when you read an herbal medicine book and they just say, well, it's a heart tonic or this or that, and it's got stuff like that. You need to know the mechanism. And that's where Western medicine really helps out, because you can't just say something is good for the liver. What does that mean? There's a zillion pathways with the liver. You can't just throw out blanket statements like that. So that brings us back to this idea of essential oils. Now, it's a big business, okay? And the reason that we're looking at this is because, in particular, we just planted, if you watch one of our old recent videos, we just planted a lot of spearmint and peppermint. Those will have a lot of volume, and we'll end up being able to extract oil if we wanted to from those things. So we were looking into that. Now, if you know me, you know that I don't do anything halfway. So if I'm going to jump into this, we're looking at thousands of dollars worth of extraction equipment and all kinds of things like that. I like to buy quality. I don't like to buy junk. So when you start then looking at, okay, well, what's the cost involved in buying the machinery to do this? Then what's the volume of plant material? Because when you do extractions on oils and hydrosols, you get very little return for the amount of plant material that you put in, which is actually why we were looking at hydrosols instead of just the essential oils, because the hydrosol has much greater volume. And so it was a way for looking at, is this thing going to even pay for itself, let alone be profitable, but will it pay for itself? My conclusion so far after reading this book, which by the way is a very good book, and I'll get to that review in just a second here, but my essential conclusion is that in order to make it worth it, you would have to charge a pretty hefty amount for those vials of oil or whatever. And to be perfectly blunt and honest, I do not see the medical benefit being enough that I would feel right about charging what I'd have to charge to make that worth it. In other words, I don't believe in it enough to do that. Now, I said in the beginning of the video, change my mind. I am still very open, because obviously essential oils is a huge market. There are people that swear by it. There are all kinds of companies. Well, there are a lot of studies on this. Well, be specific. If there's a particular essential oil, here's what I want in the comments, okay? Don't just say, it's hogwash, and don't just say, oh, it's amazing, and you don't know what you're talking about. And be polite in it, because I will block you. I've been known to do that. But be polite in your comments. But here's what I want you to do specifically in your comments. If there is an essential oil or a hydrosol that you use for a medicinal reason, I want to know what the reason is. I want to know what the mechanism is of its action, okay? And in particular, how it's taken, right? That's the other thing too. You talk to people about, well, how do you take the oil? Well, you just, use it. How? Do you do it transdermal? If you do it transdermal, what part of the body do you put it on? Is it dangerous to mucosal linings? Do you ingest it? If so, how much? All that kind of stuff. I want to know the method, and I'd like to know its actual function. So don't just say like, it just really helps my stomach. Okay, what part of that? Is it nausea? Is it gas and bloating? Is it cramps? Is it heartburn? What is it? That's what I want to know. Don't be vague, be very specific. That's where we can learn a lot from Western medicine. We get very, very specific and very detailed. So anyway, that's kind of the change my mind thing, because as I delved into this book, what I realized more and more was that, again, I just don't think that essential oils are worth the effort, the expense, the what have you, for the theoretical efficacy that they pose. So I'm just not buying it, and I'd like to, but all of it is appealing to me. All the gadgetry is appealing to me, all of that. So I am open to it, but I need some actual evidence. And understand, this library behind me is filled with hundreds of books on herbal medicine. I would say, and I do say on my tours, 90% of what's in those books is complete and utter nonsense. 10% is legit. That's the thing. How do you weed through and know what you're talking about? So let's get on to the review of this book. I do like this. It is a good book. If you are looking at hydrosols, This will tell you everything you need to know about how to pack stills, what kind of things to look for in equipment. It's just a good book. I think it's about 45 bucks on Amazon. I will put a link in the video description where you can click on that. If you click on that link, it does help us out. It'll charge you the same, but we get a little bit of a cut from that. So anyhow, then there's kind of like how much you can expect from the different herbs that you would do, and that's kind of the biggest thing too. You know, if you just have a family garden, it takes a lot of material to extract a very little amount, and so for me, again, being in the tea business, I would rather just focus on tea. So I'm glad I spent the 45 bucks because I think it probably saved me about 4,500 on equipment, unless you guys change my mind in the comments. So that's about it. So yeah, let me know what you think about essential oils. Be specific, be polite, keep the comments civil. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to see what else is brewing here at Table Rock Tea Company.